Discover true happiness. Stay tuned to Shalom World.
Talking about death is considered a very morbid topic today, and yet we experience it in many forms without even knowing. The rhythm of life is that you die in order to live. But it seems that we fail to understand that because it is such an upside-down paradox. My name is Father Dom Ori. Today, I invite you in this episode, Your Death. They said that for you to start living, you have to start dying. Death is something that we are not comfortable talking about. In a way, it creates some kind of fear within us because in some sense, we are afraid of dying. But the truth is, you have to die before you actually die. And when I talk about your death, I don't mean your physical death, even though that will come into play. But I mean all the ways that we have to die for us to actually live before we physically die. I believe that some of us are not aware of death as this rhythm of life because we see death as one event that will happen at the end of our life rather than an event that happens every day of our life through the choices that we make and through all the things that we say yes to and all the ones we say no to. Jesus portrayed this pattern of life, this rhythm of life, by going all the way down through his suffering and death in order to experience resurrection. It seems it is the only way to have life. In the Gospel of John, Jesus said, "Unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single grain. But if it dies, it grows and bears fruit." It is such a paradox, and it is something that is hard for most of us who live and operate in the conventional wisdom of the world to comprehend. And so, such an upside-down paradox seems not to make sense to us. Let's be honest, we all want to live without having to die. But when you look around you, all you could see is this cycle of life and death and life and death and life and death all around us. You can't miss that. You can't escape that. Things die so that they could give life. Jesus' death brought new life, and this tells us that this is how the world works. Jesus then invites us to follow this rhythm of life because it is the only way forward. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus said, "Whoever saves his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will find it." And then in the Gospel of John, he says, "He who loves his life loses it, and he who hates his life in this world will keep it to life eternal." Jesus has taught us how to die so that we could truly live. It is easy right now to live your life in all the shallow ways that we love our life by acquiring and achieving stuff. You know them: big houses, big boat, fancy car, more money, and yet you are losing your very real life because you are afraid of dying. To hate your life in this world is to live in such a way that all the shallow things that we are attracted to as the next best thing that will bring love into our lives are shunned over, and in so doing, embracing the rhythm of death that will lead to life, hence eternal life. In a way, it is dying to all those shallow ways of living. I must say that this is not some kind of some kind of life that will happen sometime when we die. No, 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 no. About the abundance of life that is available to us right now in the midst of everything that is going on in our life. If only we allow ourselves to die to all the negativity and hatred that pretty much occupy the present state of many of us today. Because sometimes our successes, they have served to distract us from seeing just how deeply unsatisfied our life is. Do you ever find yourself having to have the final word in an argument or trying to prove yourself? We know all the ways that we try to prove ourselves. Do you try to always have to be better than others, like you are competing with everyone else? You always like to be right, to show how other people are wrong. All those things have to die. All the ways we always like to win, impressing others, seeking their validation, all the ways we believe that our achievements and our worth are central to our being. And so we show them how good we are, how smart we are, how better, competent, educated, religious, or spiritual we are. We have to die to all those things. All those images we have wonderfully crafted for ourselves so that people could see us in a certain way, but they are not true of us, true of our heart, true of our soul, and true to our identity. One time, I was having lunch with this couple who are my friends, and one of them said something jokingly, and the other got really offended about it. And before you know it, they were arguing about what was said. And as I sat there, not knowing what to do, because each one of them was trying to have the final word, one of them, out of the blue, said, "I'm sorry." It felt like every argument and heat in the air was absorbed in that moment by those words, "I'm sorry." They looked at each other in the eyes and they saw each other. All of a sudden, they are hugging each other and saying, "I'm sorry," and the other person is responding, "I'm sorry too." You see, what had happened was that saying "I'm sorry" acknowledges that one has contributed to the mess of the argument. And it takes courage to do so. To say "I'm sorry" is a form of death. When you don't carry on proving to be right or having to have the final word, it is in a way saying that whatever may be the case, I have contributed in some sense, knowingly or unknowingly, to the pain and the mess that the other person is experiencing. In a way, we die to our being right in order to experience the kind of connection that brings new life in one another. It is a death that leads to a new life. The problem today is that some of us have refused to die. We endlessly cling to our ego and false self and keep proving ourselves to earn some love and validation. I realized this in my own life when I became aware of the endless energy that I spent trying to portray a certain image of myself, to be loved and accepted, to be respected, and to have the answers to everyone's questions about spiritual life. Well, I'm a priest, and I would like to present the image that at least I know my stuff and I'm not a loser. I get to prove to people that I am smart enough, good enough, and competent to answer all their questions. And it is exhausting, isn't it? All the ways we keep maintaining our elevated status without having to face our shadow selves. Jesus wants to set us free from all those things That's why he encourages us to die to all those things, to lose our lives so that we could find it. Like Philip Simon said, when we learn to fall, we learn that only by letting go our grip on all that we ordinarily find most precious, our achievements, our plans, our loved ones, our very selves, that we can find ultimately the most profound freedom. In the act of letting go of our lives, we return more fully to them. I remember sometime in 2016, I got a phone call from a nearby hospital in my parish asking me to come to the hospital to give the last rite to a man who was dying. So I got ready and quickly went to the hospital to see this man who was dying. As I walked down the hallway of the hospital, I could hear this big laughter going on in one of the rooms towards the end of the hallway. So when I got there, I got to the desk where you inquire about the person whom you're visiting. There was a nurse sitting there laughing at the laughter coming out from the room. I myself, hearing this laughter louder than before, I started laughing. You know how somebody's laughter could trigger you to start laughing? Yep, that happened to me at that moment. I started laughing without knowing why I was laughing. But guess what? I said to the nurse that I have come here to see a certain man who is dying. I've come to give the man the last rite. When the nurse asked me what's the name of the man, I gave him the name of the man. He looked the man's name up. She said, "Oh, it's the man in the room where all the laughter was coming from." So I asked her, "Are you sure?" Because it didn't sound like a room that somebody who was about to die was staying in. So I gazingly walked into the room, I peeped first, and then said to the people who were inside the room, and these were my exact words: "Excuse me, please. I'm not sure if I'm in the right room, but I'm here looking for a certain man." So I mentioned the man's name, and they all laughed and said, "Well, you are in the right room, mate." I was surprised by myself when I asked them what's with all the laughter, and they started telling me everything that was going on. It turned out that the man was just having a good time with his children, cracking jokes that they couldn't help themselves but to laugh so hard. The man even started telling me some jokes. My goodness, I laughed so hard that I was tearing up. After the whole thing, I gave the man the last rite, which was weird for me because the man didn't look like he was dying. But here's the thing. As I was walking down the hospital hallway, leaving, after the encounter with this man and his family, I started thinking, how could this man who knew he was dying very soon, how could he be filled with so much joy and gratitude and be fully alive even when he was physically dying? He wasn't that old, probably in his late 60s, but he was suffering from a terminal illness. As I thought about it, I thought about my own life, filled with stress, anxieties, you name them, and a little bit of sadness about how I was doing life at that time. And it hit me. It hit me. It hit me so hard that you could be physically alive, but you are dying on the inside. And you could be physically dying, but you are fully alive on the inside. You see, when you face your own mortality, it does something in you. It opens you up to a deep appreciation of what it means to be here. You cherish it and you celebrate it. I had a sense that was what was happening in the heart of this man. In a way, he has died to his fear to his anxiety, to his facing the pain of death, and to the need to have control of his life. And now he is ready to embrace a lasting life even when he was physically dying. In his heart, he knew he was going to be okay at the end. As it is popularly said, everything will be all right in the end. If it's not all right, it's not yet the end. So a couple of days later, I got a phone call from the family, and they said that their father had died last night, and they would want me to do the funeral of their beloved dad. So I shared the story of my encounter with the dad during the funeral. It resonated with many people who came to the funeral, and it stood out for me because it taught me something about what it means to actually die to some of the baggage of hatred and negativity that we carry in our life, so that we could be free to actually be fully alive. See, we can begin to identify all those things that we need to die to by listening to the inner Christ wisdom that speaks in our heart. The writer Robel calls it the deep waters of our soul. He said, when you are bored, restless, longing for something more, unfulfilled, feeling like you have settled, haunted by the sense of being trapped in your own life, these are the deep waters of your soul speaking to you, telling you something is wrong, something is missing, something needs to change. As it is written in Proverbs, that it takes insight to draw out these deep waters in your heart. When you are ready to listen to the deep waters of your soul, then you have started your journey of life. As it says in Psalm 46 verse 10, be still and know that I am God. The stillness of our heart helps us to listen to the Christ wisdom in us. And then your heart is ready. As it says in Psalm 57 verse 7, my heart is ready. Oh God, my heart is ready. I will awake my soul, awake lion and harp. I will awake the dawn. The awakening shows you that this is part of the deal of life, some kind of death that leads to life. It is a kind of stumbling that prepares you for the stumbling blocks of life, so that you could know how to truly walk the path of life. Somehow you surrender all those things that gives you the illusion of power to be led to a journey of powerlessness by the divine, so as to experience deep transformation within you. So my dear friends, I pray that you will die to many things in your life before you actually die. I pray that you lose your life so that you could find it. And I pray that you experience new liberation that comes with each death. Death to anger, frustration, self-harm, being right, proving yourself, impressing others, all those ways we seek validation. May we die to them so that we can experience new life like never before. Amen. Thank you so much for listening. I hope these words help you to be courageous to die to self so that you could experience new life in you. Hope to see you next week. God bless you.